This is Dan Brickland, and I'm talking with Jonathan Rotenberg. It's the 22nd of January, 2014, and we're about to release a video of a very important Boston Computer Society meeting, and I wanted to interview Jonathan, who founded and headed the BCS for many years. I wanted to interview him about it. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, Dan.
So tell me about this special meeting. This is the one that was in January of 1984.
Yeah, this was possibly one of the most exciting meetings in the history of the Boston Computer Society. This was actually the first showing of the Macintosh to the public, the first time that the public could come in and see this new computer. And Steve Jobs, the entire Macintosh design team, and Steve Wozniak flew out to Boston and put on a multimedia spectacle. And this has not been seen in almost 30 years, and it is going to be released for everyone to view on Saturday.
And so I figured I'd interview you a bit to get some of the backstory about how this came about. People will be able to see the video, but how did this meeting come about? How did you convince Steve to fly all these people and to spend all the money, etc., to put on for this group headed by how old were you at the time? Like 20?
Yeah, I was 20.
This group of enthusiasts in Boston, and show for the first time publicly the Macintosh.
Well, the story actually goes back to 1981. The Boston Computer Society started something called Apple Fest, which was the world's first Apple-specific computer exposition, and it attracted more than 10,000 people from all around the world. And Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak came to be the keynote speakers. And we interviewed Steve Jobs that day. It was in June of 1981. And they were already working on the Macintosh, and he was describing some of the concept behind what they were doing and this sort of a whole new reconceptualization of the personal computer.
So this is the day before the IBM PC even came out.
This is, the IBM PC was in the fall of 1981. This was in June, so this was about 6 months before. Mm-hmm. And he made clear that he couldn't talk about future products, but he was more talking conceptually.
This was at this conference that there was no Macworld or anything like that. I mean, if you're an Apple enthusiast, what did you do? There was nothing else, right?
There was just user groups.
Yeah. And
there had really never been a product-specific computer show for any type of computer. And so the BCS launched Apple Fest. At that point, there was like the West Coast Computer Fair. There was a big computer show in Atlantic City. But the idea was it was just all different kinds of computers and different users. So we, through the BCS's Apple II user group, we pioneered the idea of having an event just for users of one type of computer and bringing all of the products and services together and doing a conference program just for users. And it really mushroomed. We had, as I mentioned, close to 10,000 people. And the Macworld Expo didn't start until 3 years later. And this was actually really the thing from which Macworld Expo came, because we were Apple Fest was going to become a Macworld Expo, and we decided we were not going to do that, and we handed off to Pat McGovern at IDG, who had just launched Macworld Magazine, and that's basically how Macworld Expo got started.
Another Boston area company.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you met with Steve there and interviewed him.
Yeah. So at that point, back in 1981, the Macintosh was within Apple. The concept of it was to be like a home appliance, like your toaster oven or washing machine. And it had been started by a guy named Jeff Raskin, and the aim was to sell it for $500. And they were really still trying to figure out if that going to be possible to do what he wanted to do. But that was really the beginning, and there was no. They probably had the term Macintosh internally, but it was absolutely top secret. As I say, Steve just sort of talked very conceptually about it. Mm-hmm. But we stayed in pretty close touch, and there was a lot of rumors over the years as Macintosh evolved. There were some early conversations with some of the major universities in the area about being part of a partnership to bring Macintosh into education. And I had been in touch with Regis McKenna, which was Apple's advertising and PR firm, about different things that Apple was doing. And I think we started talking about 6 months before about the potential of hosting the first public showing of a computer that was rumored to be in development called Macintosh. So that the meeting really began to come together in kind of I'd say the mid to late part of 1983. And also the thing that happened next was that they brought me out to California in November of 1983 to actually to meet with the Macintosh design team and to see an early prototype and to actually take it back home to Boston. And that, I think, was when we started to finalize the plans for the BCS meeting in January of 84.
Mm. So Apple basically, the two of you Apple PR, and you sort of figured that doing it at the BCS was the way to do it. And this would be the first public showing as opposed to at a shareholders meeting or something like that, where anybody who showed up and got in line would be able to get in if you got in early enough.
Yeah, and I think technically the shareholder meeting, you had to be a shareholder to get into it, so it really wasn't open to the general public. But this was, by 1984, we had actually done quite a few of the first public showings of major new products. I can't remember if we had the first showing of VisiCalc or not sure about that, but we did. I know we had the first showing of 123 and a number of other major products, and there was really nothing like the BCS at this point. It was much more than a Boston phenomenon. We had members from all 50 United States and 40 countries, and it was really considered the most influential personal computer user organization in the world. And I think it made a lot of sense for Apple to look at the BCS as a prestigious place to essentially introduce the Macintosh to its potential customers. So it wasn't it wasn't a strange idea at all to them.
So what they ended up doing is bringing out the same presentation, more or less, that they showed at the shareholder meeting, so that everybody would see the same thing, the same speech that Steve had been working on, I guess, over the last few weeks or months. Except they knew it was going to be well received, so they were much looser, shall we say, than they probably were in California, having seen the two videos.
Yeah, it had a lot of the same drama of the shareholder meeting and the incredible 1984 ad, and there's a tremendous amount of staging and multimedia effects that went into it. They're similar in the beginning, but it actually takes a different direction than the shareholder meeting, because it was really much more about a forum with users. And unlike the shareholder meeting, they actually had the entire Mac design team and Steve Wozniak there, and they went through and demonstrated a lot of software, and then made it a really interactive session talking about it from a user perspective and what it meant to Apple II users and so on. So you don't miss anything from the shareholder meeting, but the what Steve and the team did in Boston, I think it's much more intimate and really more of a dialogue with users than much of a.
I mean, Steve makes it very clear. He's asking for questions, and then he's not always happy with the questions that were asked, because they were tough questions in some cases.
They were, yeah.
By real users. And then there was some recording of people on the floor afterwards talking, like with Woz and with Andy and some others.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
So that makes it a very special, in a way, an unusual type of a situation, because you see them all pretty relaxed. What was the whole event like to pull that off? I mean, take it, Steve's not known to be easy to work with, and I assume there was a lot of angst about the whole thing.
It was quite stressful, to say the least. He was one of the most demanding perfectionists I think I've ever had any association with. Which is great in terms of the quality of what he was doing, but there was just constant changes and people being sort of thrown up in the air and moving in different directions of trying to figure out what he wanted and how to make it work. We had everything basically organized about 6 weeks in advance, and probably the most stressful thing that happened was the Apple shareholder meeting where he first showed the Macintosh. Turned out to be a bit of a disaster for Apple because the hall wasn't big enough in California, and about 1,000 shareholders were locked out and were very angry because they weren't able to vote and participate in the shareholder business. And Steve got very upset about that, and then essentially decided that day or the next day to cancel the presentation at the Boston Computer Society 5 days beforehand because he was afraid the same thing would happen. So we had quite a mess dealing with trying to cancel the biggest meeting of the year a few days beforehand. But miraculously, we were able to find another location a couple blocks away that could hold close to 2,000 people. And through very tense negotiation, finally got Steve to uncancel it and come to Boston. But ironically, his fear, as always, was completely correct because we had about 600 BCS members who came and couldn't get in because it was oversold. But at least they weren't Apple shareholders from Steve's perspective.
Now, one of the things about this particular one is that at the time, my company, Software Arts, was paying to have Boston Computer Society main meetings videotaped, sort of to keep them things for the future. We videotaped all sorts of stuff. There's a little piece of something internally that's in Triumph of the Nerds. You'll see some video that we had done. But in this case, Apple actually, I think, helped with that. There were like a total of maybe 4 cameras being used during this event.
That's correct. Yeah, and interestingly, Apple had videotaped its own shareholder meeting, and a lot of it didn't come out well because they hadn't anticipated the lighting needed for video. So they in fact wanted to get a better quality tape in Boston. So there was a lot more thought put into how to videotape it, which complemented very nicely the filming that Software Arts had very generously funded as well.
Right. So in this case, we ended up our camera, I think, was the one that was on the audience and stuff, and the original editing of the VHS tapes we ended up from it came out of that, and right now we're working on trying to take the original 3/4 inch and half-inch tapes and getting them digitized as good as possible for posterity. And hopefully we'll have some of that available shortly, and then eventually all of it available for the public to see. The presentation, Steve was so comfortable up there. Seeing him at the shareholder meeting, he didn't look as comfortable. I think in this case, you just see how in command, and as a lot of people have seen this recently, how visionary about where the future should be and what they had already put into the product, how it comes out, the confidence, and also the fun when they're like, hey, who has a disc for who has an Alice disc? It's a very informal, in front of, what do you say, 2,000 people?
Yeah. It really, I think it was just one of the great moments in Steve's life. One of the things that happened at the shareholders meeting, they had a lot of technical problems that morning, and I've just been learning more about this myself in the last couple of days. The demos didn't work. There was a lot of things that messed up on the slides. Yeah. And it was a very, very high stakes, as Steve basically said they were kind of betting the company on it in front of the shareholders. But by the time that he got to Boston, I think they'd worked out the bugs, and as you say, he realized that this is an audience that just greatly admires the products. They're looking at it as a product rather than as a company, and that's really where Steve's passion was as well. So you really see in the talk just how much joy he has in kind of presenting his new baby to the world.
Yeah, the smile, the smiles and all. So, well, anything else you'd want to say about this? I I assume people are listening to this have watched it or will watch it. It'll be available through the Computer History Museum. And we've been lucky that we were able to raise money from some wonderful donors who made it possible to get these old tapes, do as high quality digitizing, and will be of all these tapes, not just of the one that we're doing for the Macintosh meeting, but many other meetings, and get transcripts of them and produce them in a way that's good. And we thank the donors, especially Brad Feld, who really came forward to help us with this.
Yeah, no, it's amazing the support from some very important people in the personal computer industry that made all of this possible. Because I really had no idea myself what's involved in taking 30-year-old analog videotape and restoring it and turning it into something that really works. Yeah. And so, we're so grateful to all of them.
Yeah, and we want to thank Glenn Koenig, who actually did the original videotaping of all the meetings and was the one who helped produce this one, and has been keeping the tapes in good shape all these years, for 30 years or more for some of them, and is actually producing these. And also the museum for keeping the tapes, the ones when Software Arts and the Boston Computer Society were basically no more. The parts that were left were given to the museum. Mm. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, it's great talking about it. I can't wait to hear what people think about it, and also I just hope everyone will stand by for the whole series, because there are some amazing historic events that happen at BCS meetings, and there's after this is the first one in the series with Steve Jobs introducing the Macintosh, but there's a really the second one is pretty spectacular as well, with Bill Gates, Mike Markkula, Don Estridge, and others arguing about the future of personal computers. And there's a lot of stuff that's 30 years old, but actually is probably just as timely in many ways today as it was back then. So I think people will really enjoy seeing the series as it comes out.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jonathan. I guess it must feel really wonderful to see something that your work from 30 years ago or more, because the BCS, I guess you started that, in 78, 79, something like that? The Boston
77, actually.
77. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And led it through high school and through college. And, you had on your board were people like Stuart Alsop and others. Pat McGovern,
yeah.
Major people in the industry, and we're getting to now see in hindsight how much important stuff actually happened there, and how lucky the people in Boston were to be able to see it. But we always wanted the BCS to be able to be nationwide or international in terms of being able to provide more than just the magazine, and now we're able to do that with these videos.
Yeah, no, it's so exciting, and just realizing that this all was preserved. It had never dawned on me that this would be possible, and it's an amazing period in history, and I think people will really enjoy just going back and experiencing the events as they happen, because it was all of these things were brand new, and it really seemed like anything is possible, and I think it's a wonderful spirit to really carry forward today.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan.
A pleasure. Great talking to you, Dan.